us back prior to that destruction. And so here's the setup. So Assyria is threatening. And the northern kingdom and its neighbor, Syria, have decided that they're going to face off against the Assyrian Empire. But they're not quite sure they're going to be successful. So they're going to ask the southern kingdom to join them. So the southern kingdom, their king is King Ahaz. He doesn't feel so good about this. He's like, no, I'm not going to join you. Well, now the northern kingdom and Syria develop a new plan. They're like, okay, fine, we will attack the southern kingdom, get rid of King Ahaz, and put a king on the throne who will work with us. So King Ahaz is very afraid, as are his people, and we get that. Now I can imagine what King Ahaz would like in that moment. More military strength, maybe some powerful alliances with bigger countries, a nice show of self-sufficiency. But when Isaiah, the prophet, approaches Ahaz about this impending destruction, he doesn't bring military plans. He doesn't bring chariots. He doesn't bring troops. Instead, he brings something radically different. A sign. Hear the words of Isaiah chapter 7, verses 10 through 16. Again, the Lord spoke to Ahaz, saying, "Ask a sign of the Lord your God. Let it be deep as Sheol or high as heaven." But Ahaz said, "I will not ask, and I will not put the Lord to the test." Then Isaiah said, "Hear then, O house of David, is it too little for you to weary mortals? Must you also weary my God also? Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Look, the young woman is with child, and shall bear a son, and shall name him Emmanuel. He shall eat curds and honey by the time he knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good. For before the child knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land before whose two kings you are in dread of will be deserted." Now it was not uncommon for Isaiah or any of these Old Testament prophets to use children, the names of children, to name children as living signs. For an example, Isaiah's wife had a son, and she named him Shir Jashub, which means a remnant shall return. And there was another child named Maher Shalal Hashbaz, which meant the spoil speeds and the prey hastens. Likewise, this child who was to be named Emmanuel was a living sign, a promise that God's presence, not military might, but God's presence would be the deliverer of the people. Now, many Christians have been taught to hear this passage that I just read from Isaiah as a prophecy of Jesus' birth. And while Matthew does refer back to the passage with a couple of changes, Isaiah is speaking first and foremost to Ahaz in his condition right then. The text is not future tense. Look, Isaiah says, a young woman is already with child. And, Isaiah goes on, before this child is weaned, before it is able to accept curds and honey, before it begins to know right from wrong, this threat that you're worried about, Ahaz, is going to be over. And indeed it was. Within a short time, the siege was lifted, the crisis was over. The northern kingdom and Syria were destroyed by the Assyrian Empire, and Judah was spared. God's message in this text, to me, is pretty clear. That God's ultimate deliverance, God's salvation, doesn't come through military might and power, but through Emmanuel, through God's presence with us. And it is this truth that sends Matthew back into the book of Isaiah, saying, wait a minute, this is the same thing. This Jesus is Emmanuel. This is God's presence with us now. So Matthew writes, Matthew 1, chapter 18 to 25, he says, now the birth of Jesus the Messiah took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been engaged to Joseph, but before they lived together, she was found to be pregnant from the Holy Spirit. Her husband, Joseph, being a righteous man and unwilling to expose her to public disgrace, planned to divorce her quietly. But just when he had resolved to do this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet Isaiah. Look, the virgin shall become pregnant and give birth to a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. When Joseph awoke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took Mary as his wife, but had no marital relations with her until she had given birth to a son, and he named him Jesus. Fast forward 700 years from the time of Ahaz and Isaiah, and we find another man who's afraid. As Joseph experiences the swelling of Mary's belly, everything in him says, run away, get out of this situation, save your reputation. But God intervenes. Not with violence, not with coercion, but with a whisper, a dream, a call to trust. Joseph chooses love over fear. He receives the child. He names the child Jesus, and he participates in God's soft deliverance. Jesus comes into human history not as a warrior king, but as a vulnerable baby. No palaces, no guards. Herod will respond with violence, the slaughter of the innocents. But God, according to Isaiah and Matthew, refuses the tools of empire. God refuses to use violence, hatred, division, and fear. God's ways are higher, Isaiah tells us. God does not crush people. God comes near, gently, vulnerably, cooingly, longing for our embrace. God's love is a love that draws us in and does not make us feel afraid and does not threaten us. This is Emmanuel, God's presence, present for us, beckoning to us and all people. And yet, there are some who believe that Emmanuel means God with only us. History has shown that when we twist the concept of Emmanuel into an exclusive God on our side, this theology does not go well. You might recall in World War I and World War II, emblazoned on the belt buckles of the German soldiers were the words, Gott mit uns, God with us, framing their aggression towards certain others as divinely ordained. We see this exclusive nature in the Christian crusades of the 11th to 13th centuries, when Christian armies rallied under the cry, Deus vult, God wills it, as they massacred tens of thousands of Muslims, Jews, and Eastern Christians. Here in the United States, in the 19th century, Manifest Destiny claimed the lives of indigenous Americans as expansionists believed that God was with them, giving them a divine mandate to conquer the continent, viewing the people already there as obstacles to God's divine plan. History has revealed that whenever we think that God is only with us, chances are God is not with us at all. Jesus teaches us that God's love is not a boundary, it's a bridge. That God's love doesn't wound, it heals. Where do we see this love today? Where do we see Emmanuel, God with us? I see Emmanuel in the work of an Italian surgeon named Dr. Gino Strada. He serves in Afghanistan, and he allows no guns in his hospital. And yet he serves everybody that comes through the door, be it a civilian, be it an Afghani official, be it a Taliban fighter. And his decision to not allow hate to decide who gets care allows his team to demonstrate that peace can exist, compassion can exist, even if peace does not. And that humanity is not conditional. I see Emmanuel, God with us, in the work of grassroots organizations and interfaith groups that constantly show up for issues unarmed, believing that presence matters more than dominion. One such group that I'm particularly fond of is a group called Combatants for Peace. And this group was formed by two combatants. These two men, one in the IDF, the Israeli military, and the other in the Palestinian military, fought for their respective militaries. And finally they decided, wait, there has got to be a better way. So they put down their weapons and they started to develop friendships with one another. And this is how the group Combatants for Peace was formed. Now a very large group of both Israelis and Palestinians. They work together. They've got each other's backs. They support one another. They stand together to bring peace and justice and harmony into their homeland. I see Emmanuel when a Muslim man risks his life to disarm a shooter firing at Jewish worshipers. I see Emmanuel in churches throughout New Hampshire that open their doors to those that the world has rejected. I see it right here in Kensington as we welcome people of other faiths, as we welcome members of the LGBTQ community, as we welcome people who've been incarcerated, and we do that ministry. This is Emmanuel. This is God with us all. And there are so many doing this work today. As we light this candle of love, let us internalize that message that God is with us, offering us the power to love, offering us the power to heal, offering us the power to reconcile. God has come among us, and this love is eternal. It will not quit. It will not be undone. And it invites each one of us into it. O come, O King of nations, bind in one our hearts of all humankind. Bid all our sad divisions cease, and be yourself our King of peace. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to you, O Israel.